because I don't trust the sound. So hi Tim, how are you? This is such a treat to talk to you today, Tim Wild. I've been tuning into you on Mondays and Fridays for the last year or two to
bless
keep
you, Abby.
me
Good morning.
on a even keel, because this is healing for healers, and I'm a healer and I need healing just like everybody else does. So for me to have you on the show today to talk about you as a healer is really a gift and a blessing. So how are you doing? And it's great to have you here.
Oh, thank you, Abby. It's a real honor to be invited on. Thank you. I'm good. I'm good this morning, but last month I wasn't so good. So I think, anybody who's tuning in and listening to this at a later date or whenever will be able to really identify with what we're talking about. I love the subject. Who heals the healers? It's the eternal question, and you don't really think about what this entails until you've got to the point where you need healing if you're in this position. So
you said on one of your videos, and that freed me up significantly, you talked about the light worker relay race.
Yeah.
Which for me means that I'm going to hold the light today, and then you can have your duvet day, and then when I don't feel so good, you're going to hold the light, and then I can have my day.
Exactly.
And it just, and you were saying even the other day about, you feel like you have to hold the whole world up, but everybody else is also holding the world. So we'll share the weight between us.
Absolutely.
I think that in itself, that concept, a lot of healers have trouble getting their heads around that. How did you learn this?
A hard way. I mean, if you kind of think back like 10 years, 15 years, Abby, when we were kind of like, beginning, or, we've been on this pathway for a while, but the way in which we distribute our workload is now very different to the way that it was. We were kind of pretty isolated before, even though we had our workshops, we had our groups. The things were a lot more kind of separated than they are recently, and we can thank social media for that. We can thank there's a lot of very, very good things that have come out of the last 2 years, despite the fact that it's been extremely uncomfortable. And one is the way that we've all been unified and united together and brought together with something that was initially designed to, everybody has their criticisms of Facebook, for instance, don't they? They go, oh, it's awful, it's a spying device, and that's ultimately maybe what it was actually set up for, to get everybody's personal information. What they didn't bank on the fact that it would actually give a communication network for a planet-wide group of extremely powerful light workers, and that has grown exponentially. So we've now got all of this support, and we can contact each other, we can call for support. It's become a unified field rather than a kind of pockets of people scattered all around the world who aren't really communicating with each other. So it's moved into another space now, and it's and most people will find this as well. Anything that you are speaking or teaching about, ultimately you have to experience yourself first, or if you're talking about it, you've got to walk your talk and actually go through it so that you are part of what you are teaching.
So one of the things we've noticed, I'd say you have as well, is your bullshit detector is more refined now.
Oh yeah.
So when you've got people out there who are doing this teaching and healing, and people start to be more discerning, and I think over the last 2 years has been a great lesson for people not to just hand their power over to just anybody.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things that have been revealed through our waking up and growing up process, there we were thinking we were already finished. There's a whole new chapter to do. But the people that we care about and we loved and respected, to see them now that they're not who we thought they were, is also been very difficult. So, when you can go onto a platform like Facebook, and I personally have been using Telegram a lot, because the idea of centralization right now is something that's on my mind, and how can we break things up? So if we're only connected on Facebook, how do I find you if Facebook decides it doesn't like me anymore, it doesn't like you anymore? So to keep that in the back of our minds, I think preparing is a way for us to expand. I don't know,
Yeah,
what do you think? Yeah.
I think it's a double-edged sword, that one, Abby, because I've seen the kind of there's a huge amount of talk about the social media oppression or censorship that's been rising rapidly over the last 2 years. And with that, people have then, like you said, they've gravitated to Telegram or MeWe or Odyssey or other platforms where they can speak and say exactly what they want, and there's no censorship. But in my opinion, that has also served to fragment us slightly, because nobody has actually identified a suitable alternative yet. So there is no alternative to Facebook apart from Facebook. That's where the hub of our power lies. And I've been speaking about what's going on for the last 2 years, and I've managed to navigate around being slapped with one of those get in the naughty corner for 30 days sort of thing. There's ways and means of speaking about what's going on, conveying what's happening without actually triggering the rage of Mark Zuckerberg's bots, you know what I mean? So they descend upon you like ravening wolves and ban everything. And
Yeah.
we shouldn't have to, but that is the way things are at the moment. There is this kind of rising censorship, but all of that does is empower us, because then it allows other people to see the truth. So we've got this polarity, this reflection going on all the time. But until somebody finds a suitable alternative to this communication network that we have, the kind of the dissipating or the diluting of our focus has actually been all it does is confuse people. I've tried a few other platforms and they just don't feel right.
I think what's wonderful though about the work that we do as light workers is that if we disconnect from everything and reconnect into our hearts, and then connect into the field of all the other light workers that are doing the work, we can feel them there, even if we can't speak to them in our human selves. So to have that trust and faith that we're not alone has been a real test of faith. And to know,
really
okay, now people are talking more and we can see the truth coming out more. But back in the first year of this 2-year event, we really were struggling. So
it was a huge initiation, 2020. To me, it was kind of the information I got coming in was the fact that it was the beginning of a huge dark night of the soul collectively for the planet. Everything was set up to be that way. Everything that we're experiencing is pre-orchestrated. Okay, so like you know this, I know this, everybody listening to this knows it on some level. There's no random occurrences on this planet. We're not being subjected to something that we haven't agreed to or that hasn't been kind of overseen in some way, shape or form. So this huge fear release that occurred in 2020 and the isolation led to more communication, and it also led to the by August, the fifth veil of amnesia had fallen away from the majority of people on this planet, which meant they could start to see clearly. You mentioned the bullshit detector, and all of a sudden, the words that are coming out of the 3D matrix no longer have any power, because you can see and feel so very clearly what the intention behind it is, whereas before it was kind of cleverly disguised. So we've upgraded incredibly in the last 2 years, whilst thinking in many cases quite the opposite. And it's been a really interesting process to dissect.
It really has. I mean, I've been watching your audience growing, and you're sitting there in your own house, in your living room, and there's no bells and whistles. There's no camera person and makeup lady and any of that. And I think that we appreciate that more. And then sharing your process with us as you work.
Thanks.
We work together, and that's how I work as well. I would come on with my group and say, I'm having a difficult day today. Let's all, just connect to the light. Let's clear away the dross. And I started about a year ago working into my group monthlies to clear the psychic viruses, and that's become something that is just standard now for the work that I do. And I think when you're doing a deep clean of yourself for the first time, it's a lot of work, but then when you keep doing it, you release that hold over you, the confusion, and then you can start to see more what's going on. And I think people would rather be with real people doing work together than have a guru or a celebrity teacher out there and you just follow them. And I think that's a really valuable shift in our collective consciousness as well. I mean, you do it all the time too. People are not worth any more than anybody else, but we all are in this together, but you have to put the work in. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's the one of the common misconceptions about the spiritual pathway is that it's all fluffy and nice and easy and there's unicorns everywhere and we can just have a nice time and chill out, and the fifth dimension is like a holiday destination.
Oh, yeah, the angels do all the work for us.
That's right. Yeah, just hand it over, whatever sort of thing. That's bothering me today. I don't want to feel that. Can someone take it away from me, please? And it's the polar opposite of that. I mean, where we have been and where we are at the moment has the potential to be a grind. What March revealed was the prevalence of the shadow work that we're having to go through at the moment. With the incoming light, which is wonderful. Everybody likes light upgrades. Everybody likes the incoming. You mentioned ascension vibrations incoming, and everyone's like, yes, it's coming in. Well, it's like, hang on a second, that's going to dig up more stuff. Feels great when it lands, but then inevitably you have to release what was stuck in the basement that you couldn't see before. And March was massive for that. Everybody got slapped in March for it. So yeah, you've got to do the work. You've got to put the graft in if you're going to get the results at the moment. And one of the commonest questions that I get is, well, how much longer are we going to have to graft for? And that's like, how long's a piece of string? It's like, how long? How long are you going to hang on to your stuff for? How long are you going to kind of deny your own processes and things that are actually out of alignment with you? Because we can't take any of that stuff with us. And when I say you're talking about a level playing field, that's exactly what I mean when we move into this fifth dimensional utopia that we're all aiming for in 10 years' time, or just the beginning of it. We've all got to work together. And one of the biggest mistakes that was made in Atlantis was the tier system, where you'd have people in high priest and priestess mode lording it over everybody, and that was their function. But because of the division and because of the authority steps and the different structures, there was a lot of it that worked to the detriment eventually, and so you
think what we're going through at the moment, Tim, is like an equivalent of the fall of Atlantis?
Very much so. It's an absolute reflection. We've gone back to the direct energy of what occurred at the fall. And in fact, the same people that were responsible for the fall of Atlantis are now running the show around the planet, and they've become visible. They've had to step out of the shadows. They've had to reveal themselves under the spiritual law. So we can see them. They're mentioned every day on social media, and they're prominent, and they know that we know, and we know that they know that we know. And it's all fun and games. But
what's really interesting is because I'm in Ireland, and I'm sure making the local connections here, there's lots of people out there that were never spiritual, that are atheists, that are waking up now and saying, oh, and I was watching these two lads in a video last night, and they're great, with the old hoodies, and they're sitting back, and all that was missing was the few pints of beer. And they were saying, there has to be spiritual context in this. This is the thing that I found, and this is what they're saying, that everyone who's being true and authentic and real has some kind of spiritual backbone. And it's interesting because even if you're an atheist, I was having a discussion with someone there. I said, but you're not an atheist if you believe in truth. And you could then extrapolate truth as God and God is truth, but we didn't need to do that, because just the concept of, well, I do believe in truth and integrity and justice, you know, to go home and think about that for a while. So everybody's kind of growing up.
Mull on that for a little bit and marinate on that.
But you've been doing amazing work holding space for everybody as we're all growing. And I know some of us have been holding space for you as well. But
Yeah.
How do
Really
you look after you when you're not on the video, when you're not presenting? You know, what kind of things do you?
It's a very fine line. I mean, I'm exactly like you, Abby. I have a family. I have, like, you know, the what we would regard as the kind of the connection to 3D that a lot of us find very, very draining. And that's something which we're all in the process of navigating. On one side of the coin, the advice is to unhook from it all and commit totally to 5D. But that doesn't mean leaving everything that we have here behind. It just means taking it up to a higher level and approaching it from a heart-centered vibration rather than an ego-centered vibration. So my self-care has been my biggest lesson out of everything that I've learned, is how to cope with the workload that I place upon myself, the pressures of family, homeschooling my youngest, and all of the other things that are continuously going on around me. And I still haven't balanced it or mastered it perfectly now. But one thing that it's boiled back down to is my own acceptance of personal healing and beginning to I'm going on a I'm being treated homeopathically at the moment for the things that have been kind of bothering me. I'm being a lot more kind of considerate to myself with my exercise. I mean, I'm a kickboxer. Before I was running and kickboxing 5-6 times a week and really stressing my immune system, my adrenals out. I've cut that back down now. So I will train when I feel good, not when I feel like I have to. And these are tiny little adjustments that you would talk about, but when you apply them to yourself, they're colossal, because you've got to change habits. You've got to change the things that might actually be hiding inside you that aren't self-love, that you're still operating upon. So it's about, if you're going to really go through this process, caring for yourself, you've got to learn how to love yourself first. And that, for most people, is one of the biggest of them all. It's the biggest mountain to climb.
That's funny you said that, because before we started recording this, I had said to you that I'm actually struggling with not going on my daily walk.
Yeah.
But my body's energy levels shoot up higher at the idea of not having to do it. But it's great for my head. It's great. It actually, I would use my walk to clear my energy, clear my mind, get in alignment with whatever I'm working on. And lately it's been hard because I think the energy is coming through, and I think my body is very sensitive energetically. Inflammation has been happening, a lot of inflammation.
That's exactly it.
Not forcing myself to eat full meals is also helping. Good. And connecting in deeper at the body level to say, well, what does my body want, as opposed to what does my head think my body wants?
That's it. You've just nailed it. Basically, honoring the body. It's it doesn't matter what we do on the spiritual pathway, you are always going to be surrounded by the things that have the capacity to drain you, to fry you emotionally and kind of like energetically. So we've got to learn to balance the unit, the I am, us, this precious physical thing that we've been given that most people fight with day and night, to kind of manage. And so, yeah, I've finally, after all of these years, kind of got to the point where I'm looking at myself as the priority, because it's so important that we've got the energy to do that, on the days that we have the baton and the relay race, that we're on point and the energy is right and what we do doesn't drain us, and that the people that do require of us get our full attention when we have that time and the focus to do so. So it's
and then knowing that there'll be somebody else there when we're not available. I mean, it's one of the things that's come up for me in the last year is just needing to sit and do nothing for hours.
Yeah, literally.
And it's been crazy. And what I'm putting together as you were speaking is our need for comfort and routine and habit, and how part of us just likes the routine of the same things every day. And you don't have to think, and you get up and you do this, and then you do that, and then you do the other. Whereas our energy bodies are growing. We're not formed like that anymore. And we have to like, and my throat is going, which means I'm clearing for people who are listening. You know, we have to allow ourselves to be fluid and flexible, and that every day is different, and that makes life much more interesting. But I think consolidation within the self-confidence to give ourselves the permission to do that. You know, so like yesterday I wrote a phenomenal amount, and then 2 days before that I didn't write anything. And if I had tried to write the same amount of words every day, I would have twisted myself in knots, and I wouldn't have had a productive day like I had yesterday. So
exactly. It's conforming to that self-pressure that has broken many people in the past, isn't it? You know, to do the quantity of writing that you did, but to have the day before to allow yourself to kind of clear and for that channel to expand. And so everything is kind of locked and loaded and ready to download into your art that you are creating with your words. That is therefore honoring the process. But a lot of people wouldn't do that. They'd force themselves at that computer and they'd crack it out. And that's what we're changing. The fluidity. Just before we moved into the winter solstice last year, I said the only way I was told very clearly it's Archangel Metatron, like kind of chirping away, giving the sort of like, right, okay, we've got this incredible new flow of energy. Once we've moved through that gateway, everything on the other side is going to be very different, and we're going to have to adapt to it. And I was like, right, okay, well, how's that? And well, you're going to have to find out. But you go through the gateway flowing, and on the other side of it, little hint, keep flowing. Don't suddenly stand, oh, right, I'm out the river now. You know, I can crack on the way I was before. Everything is done in flow. So the fluidity of the energy that we are experiencing is the pace at which we move. And that has to be the way that we form our new way of the way that we function. It's so you get shoved through the gateway, and it's like, right, okay, I'm just going to allow myself to kind of flow with the current. And now we're in April.
To me,
already.
that kind of emanates the divine feminine.
Yeah.
And that was something I felt was changing over the last few years, where you would sit in your intention and clear within you what's in the way, that you would get more accomplished by doing small things with the correct energy behind them than, you know, bashing away like that gif with the guy on the keyboard going like this, that you just don't get anything done. Like, if your energy's right, then you show up and you can say it, and you don't have to shout it, and it gets heard. And if, totally. You know, if we come into alignment with working and being like that, I think now, you know, a lot more satisfaction, a lot less effort physically, but energetically, you know, to honor and appreciate, we have to spend time looking after all of those other parts of ourselves that aren't recognized by, let's say, mainstream medical, mainstream media. All of that, they don't see it. And for me, that's very strong, reflected in the split that's going on at the moment. Mars
and Venus, isn't it? They're two totally different planets, and we can see the difference in.
You can see the last hurrah of the divine masculine wanting to stomp over divine feminine by taking over everything and saying, no, we're in charge.
Yeah, that's it. Like, that's the difference between ego and heart. And that's the journey. Ultimately, if you take away everything else that's going on in this ascension process, the simplicity of what is occurring is that we're moving from ego to heart. Okay. And once we're in the heart, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that the ego's gone. We're always going to have an ego, but we will know how to manage that ego. So when the ego calls, we're like, you're not serving me today, or that particular thing that, you know, you are presenting to me, and know the difference. And be able to fine tune the process to the point where you can identify where you are functioning from. And that's another really important thing of this year, is that people are going to be continuously presented with Mars's version and Venus's version, and be able to tell very, very quickly which is resonating for them and which they should be actually flowing with. It's
Could you do something for us, for the listeners, before we finish, because you've been speaking about going through with the open heart, and I've heard you, and I've been working with my heart, and I've got, you know, so much going on there that at times I don't want to open my heart. So is there some kind of a technique or a visualization that you could give to all of us to help us be an open heart without feeling that our heart is so open it's going to pick something up? And then, you know,
this is the very interesting part about functioning or working with the fifth dimensional heart, because once it's open and activated, there is no possibility that that heart will pick up anything that's vibrating below the benchmark of polarity, because it is what it is. It's a fifth dimensional kind of powerhouse, the kind of the guiding light of our ascension process. Everybody listening to this at the moment will already be gifted with this open fifth dimensional heart center, but because of the way that we are identifying with the ego's programs, you get pulled in and out of it, and most people aren't aware of it. And there is a big kind of like, there's a big thing going on at the moment where we are picking up the density of others, the third dimensional vibrate, the 3D vibrations from the matrix. And that's kind of, there's no sugary pill for that. It's all down to kind of discipline, focus, intention, manifestation, and staying as much in that heart center as possible. So yeah, I'll be very happy to do that.
So just trusting then that you're not going to, it's like if you don't give consent, because I have images of like hatchets and pickaxes and everything flying at you with your wide open heart, and it's just going to come in and hurt you. So
no, it's once you've got your heart field operational, the effect that it has on your environment is to raise everything to your frequency. This is why we're being so successful on this ascension pathway at the moment. It's why we are, despite what the matrix would tell you, we are the kind of the dominant vibration on this planet now is heart-centeredness, and it's being spread from person to person by the circumstances that we are experiencing. But there is obviously a very, very concerted effort from from where we've been to draw us back into it, and that won't stop. In fact, it's likely to get louder. The more disempowered that previous paradigm becomes, because we're all unplugging from it, the louder it's going to yell, because it wants us to plug back into it again. So staying
you can spend all of its power yelling.
That
would explain why those two lads there, you know, without the points, were having that discussion that they might not have had, because they're picking up on that frequency and it's affecting them, even though they don't really understand what's going on.
I'd say 99% of the people that are awake at the moment aren't even aware that they're awake. They're just operating differently. They're operating on a different platform. And, you know, we're going to see this a lot over the next 10 years, Abby, is there's going to be a lot of people aligned to their own personal ascension pathway, but they're not going to be identifying with it spiritually like you and I do. They're just going to be living their life at a different level of consciousness. They will adhere to things that they are being inspired to do, leaving things out of their life that was previously damaging, and kind of lowering their frequency and their vibration. And it's all a stepping up, but it's being fueled by the kind of like the deliberate anchoring of this higher fifth dimensional matrix, which is what most of us are spending the majority of our chosen time in whenever we can. And so it becomes more empowered and more strong the more we do it. You know, it's a process of repetition and strengthening and almost habit forming. You have to form the habits to be in the correct place mentally, physically, spiritually,
and
emotionally.
And to have that listening ear to not do it because it's become a habit, but to actually ask yourself, is this what I need? But it feels very much like those of us who are aware spiritually and doing this work, and kind of people who'd be listening to this episode would be ahead of the posse and ready then for these other people when they realize that they need healing, and they need healing from healers who understand this, to feel like, okay, maybe it's been difficult for us right now, but I feel like we're coming out of something and preparing to hold space for other people who are going to go through that. You know, it's like waves. It feels like there's waves of awakening, and other people have to be on the other side of the shore, so to speak, to give the helping hand to get the other people out and up onto the shore as well.
We're going to see you're absolutely completely bang on there. We're going to see the biggest quantity of soul migration or vibration migration this year. I like that, vibration migration. So like, the biggest flow of energy moving into our field over the next year or 2 years or so, simply because everyone on this planet is beginning to reject the picture that they're being presented with. I mean, the
questions,
the hardest thing for us at the moment to accept is the fact that people are still asleep. It's causing a lot of anger. It's causing a lot of division. You know, why won't these people wake up? For God's sake, you know, how can they not see what we see? But it's a process of unraveling the hypnotism, or allowing the hypnotism to, because when I mentioned earlier on about the veil of the third eye, the fifth veil of amnesia, that's the one that's been removed globally. There's no exceptions with that, but people still aren't seeing, and it's cognitive dissonance, and it's long-term. It's because we've spent 10,000 years programmed by what we call, you know, what we refer to as the third dimensional matrix, for limitation, control, religion, all of these other things that have convinced us to hand our power over to a bigger or an unseen force, or people that are kind of like lording over us and making money out of our very existence. People are unplugging from that, but there's a lot that are still completely hypnotized into that way of living. They're the ones that we're waiting for, because as soon as they see, and it doesn't take much. It's just that last little bit.
I have a feeling now as well, it's overwhelming that everything that you believe suddenly isn't true. Whereas I would have lived my whole life, you know, breaking things apart, studying them. What if we're in a snow globe on a mantelpiece in an alien's bedroom? You know, that I've always been wondering about things like that, you know, and I would say to my children when they're growing up, you know, prove to me that you're not the center of the universe.
Yeah.
And she said, but what about all the children in India and the children in Africa? I said, yeah, but you made them like that. So they're suffering, but they're far enough away from you. So it's okay, you know, and you're still, but then you, and I said, yeah, but you've constructed me exactly as me, so that I'm here asking you this. So, but you're annoying me. I said, yeah, well, maybe you're doing that to yourself. You know?
That's a brilliant analogy. Yeah, like on an alien shelf in the snow globe. I think that's
but
brilliant.
then I saw it in Men in Black when it was in the cat's collar.
That's right. I remember. I love that.
There's a galaxy in Orion's belt, and Orion's belt was the collar. But then at the very end of the first movie, and you pan out and you pan out and you pan out, we're actually in a ball on a croquet lawn of an alien. And I'm going, yes, I knew it. I knew it.
Brilliant.
But for some people, it's just too much to comprehend. And I think the cognitive dissonance is like an elastic band that's stretched and stretched so far. And for some people, it might come back together. It'll never be the same. But for others, it'll snap. And there might be difficulties there that they might never recover from. So we just need to be prepared for that. Well, I mean, that's my sense of the moment anyway.
We do. I again, this is something else that I spoke about. I think it was around kind of January time, that I think anybody who's waking up at the moment and suddenly kind of moving from, you know, that state of that blissful state of inertia, or kind of, you know, being submerged underneath the pool still in that 3D vibration. Most people who've woken up recently have got some kind of form of post-traumatic stress disorder because of what they've been shown. There's nothing more shocking than realizing that your entire previous reality was an absolute lie. And in actual fact, you're much bigger than that, but you've got to get over the fact that all of that you were plugged into was false.
Well, I think I knew that I had PTSD over the last 2 years. I haven't discussed this, you know, with people listening, but you might find it interesting because as an intuitive, knowing that something is deeply, deeply wrong, and against everything that you're being told, but not having evidence to back that up, not having argument, not having proof, and every fiber in your being saying, no, this isn't right. And nobody, you know, and so that was traumatic. I said, I have to save my family, and I don't care. And you can think what you like of me. I'll stand in front of a bus if I have to. And then for me to sit with myself and say, that was traumatic.
Yeah. I think so many people can share and identify with that as well, Abby, because it triggered all of our survival instincts when we saw what was coming, because we all called for this global awakening, didn't we? We've all been calling for it. We've been shouting, right, okay.
But not like this.
No. It's like going to a restaurant and ordering a load of food and then go, oh, I don't want to eat that. Can you take that away and bring me something that's a little bit more palatable? When it presented itself, the opportunity for global change, it was not presented in a comfortable manner. And you think about it logically, it's not going to be. No. In order to wake up people from thousands and thousands of years of hypnotism and being plugged into a false matrix, the school that we've all been attending, in order to leave that school, you've got to realize from the level that we're talking about here that it was an illusion, that we have been lied to. That's where the trauma, you know, the traumatized reactions coming from, because all of a sudden our world became very threatening. And if you think about it, all of this threat's invisible. It's coming through the TV. It's in the air. It's all around us. So how do you defend against that? And immediately, like you say, you'd stand in front of a bus to speak the truth. But now it's gone on for a little bit longer. You realise that it's serving itself.
Yes.
And its own goaling on such a repeated level that the whole intention of the process is simply to wake up the people who have not unplugged yet. And that will continue until they've done so. So the pressure's not going to go away. And the carnival in 3D is definitely not going to subside until that quantity of designated people have moved out of it. So the fun is not over yet.
It's not over yet, but we can't shake them or make them wake up. No, and we have to very much look after ourselves.
Yeah, they've got to do it under their own steam. And our job is to lead by example and help each other, you know, as much as we possibly can. Share that weight, because, you know, we 10, 15 years ago, we thought we're on our own. We thought we had to shoulder this burden individually without the assistance that we've got. Now there are billions of us on this planet, and we're all holding the light in our own way, with our own set of gifts and talents, with all of the things that we've brought through. So those who are a little bit behind us, we're encouraging them to catch up. We lead by that example and wait for the next wave to join. Like you're saying,
we'll all be here lighting up, holding space for that, instead of rushing in and dragging everybody. I think it's the best way to do it.
Come on, wake up. Sort of thing.
So look, Tim, this has been amazing, and it's really quick. We're going to wrap up now. So is there any advice you just want to share with the listeners before we finish on any of this that we've talked about?
Absolutely. I mean, for yourself, look after yourself as a number one priority at the moment. If your body is calling for you to do something, start to honor what the body is asking you to do. And that goes for sleep, diet, attention to outside parameters such as social media. Social media is a bit, you know, and the level that we're being asked to communicate with others is a big one at the moment. I was talking about this in my workshop the other night. Is every communication that we have at the moment is a contract, an energy contract. So make sure that your energy contracts are clear, clean, within the boundaries that you are setting for yourself. And just while we are upgrading, which we are on a daily basis to the level that we are, you might feel that you need to step out, relax, honor that. If you want to go on a juice cleanse or a detox, do it, you know, because that's another big pattern that I'm seeing at the moment. The detox, everybody's detoxing. It's suddenly become really, really fashionable, but it's a call from the field to purge our physical bodies of impurities so that we are not triggered by things that would, you know, like, in other words, poison us. that are bogging us down. Our bodies have to become lighter, our fields have to become more refined, and we're only going to do that while we start honoring ourselves. And we know in our hearts what's right for us. So it's about listening to what you want. Again, take advice from other people, but if it's not resonating with you, leave it and move on, and go and take what does resonate with you, and just keep doing that, and make a daily practice of keeping your light high, your vibration clear, your manifestation sharp, and you can't go wrong.
And listen to this podcast and catch Tim on Mondays and Fridays on YouTube or Facebook.
Oh, thank you, Abby. It's been
This has been wonderful. Maybe we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm sure we could find a lot more to talk about on this subject, couldn't we?
Okay, so I'm going to stop recording now.